Hello, and welcome to our Advanced GIS project created by Kieran Hardiman and Matthew Fernandez. The California Bay Area has gained a lot of attention in the last decade or so for its rapid technological expansion, but before this, it was also home to many manufacturing and industrial companies. This comes at a price for the water quality of the bay, as many point source pollutants, like wastewater treatment plants, can affect the concentration of vital nutrients that certain species rely on. In places like the Gulf of Mexico, agricultural runoff from the Mississippi River has created what's called a dead zone, where the lack of dissolved oxygen in the water is so low that fish cannot survive, and it spans almost 7,000 square miles. The condition for waters that have a dissolved oxygen concentration under 2 milligrams a liter is called hypoxia. A study was also recently published by James Cloern of the USGS National Research Program in the ASLO journal that focused on trends in the Bay Area, highlighting the large variability in seasonal and long-term patterns. For our project, we asked ourselves the question, is there a dead zone in the San Francisco Bay Area, and is it changing over time? Taking inspiration from the USGS, we began answering this by acquiring dissolved oxygen data from the 36 water quality stations located throughout the bay, as well as their corresponding coordinate data. Once we moved this data from an HTML format into an Excel table, we were able to graph the dissolved oxygen concentration against its station number between the years of 2016 through 2018 using a pivot table analysis. Looking at all the years and months within our data extent, we found there was a slight downwards trend as the stations moved towards South Bay during the month of July. From here, we isolated the month of July for all 3 years, as you can see in the graph. In order to visualize what this actually looks like, we included an early stage map of the station locations with their corresponding DO values. We'll explain how we did this later. The next step was to consider factors that would contribute to the alteration of dissolved oxygen concentration, which included things like distance that certain stations were from rivers, as well as bathymetry data and the locations of wastewater treatment plants, as explained in the Cloern study. These auxiliary features were provided by the ESRI Living Atlas layers in ArcGIS Online. Geoprocessing began with creating a point feature class that was made from the station coordinate table and then projecting it onto the NAD 1983 UTM Zone 10N coordinate system, which was also done on all of the preceding auxiliary files. A join was made, tying the DO concentrations with the coordinate data, and symbology of the point features was changed to graduated colors in order to visualize the cascading trend of the DO concentrations. Bathymetry data was converted from a .ncf into a raster, then symbolized appropriately. Next, a 10-mile buffer zone was formed around the station location file and dissolved to create one shape that was used to clip the Living Atlas features as seen here, which originally had extents that spanned the entire U.S. Euclidean distances of 2 selected rivers, Sacramento and Coyote Creek, were ran, as these were considered most important for freshwater deposits into the bay, as well as Euclidean distances for the wastewater treatment plants along the water. The last step was running these factors through a forest-based classification and regression algorithm to predict how these DO values would span across the bay. The Euclidean distances of the 3 features, as well as the bathymetry data, were used as explanatory training rasters, and the model was ran, returning the importance of each variable, as well as an R-squared value of 0.922. It was also concluded that most of the data was significant because of the low returned p-value of 0.027. The final product is displayed here, where we are able to relate our findings back to our problem statement. From the data we acquired and the map shown from this data, it is apparent that the South Bay area is more at risk of approaching hypoxic conditions than the northern portion of the bay. If we were to predict why, it would be because of it being as far from the Sacramento River as it can be, and the lack of flow out, which would cause a longer residence time. On top of this, the large amounts of wastewater treatment plants found in the South Bay and along the piers of San Francisco would contribute to a lot of dumping, which could affect the concentration of dissolved oxygen, as explained in Cloern's findings. If we were to perform this project again, we would produce maps from prior years and compare them to more recent years and observe potential trends over time. Other revisions would include more factors that could be ran through a forest-based classification so that the return would cover a wider range of variables. This concludes our project, and we'd of course like to thank Professor David Saw and Fernando Lopez for taking the time to help us through our geoprocessing. We couldn't have done this without you.